Hello everyone, my name is Nitin Jain. I have around 17 plus year of experience designing and architecting front-end applications. From last 3.5 years or so, I've been into the platform engineering space, which is very new to me. I've been helping teams reducing their cognitive loads in deploying and scaling their solutions over the cloud. And that's where I've been using Backstage, which is primary focus in today's talk. So here is my funnel of focus for the today's presentation. I'm going to talk about three main things. Uh, why Backstage? What is Backstage? This is one, the background of Backstage. The second is how it is going to help us in the JavaScript ecosystem. So this is more around from the best practices world as a reference architecture, as a blueprint, which we can leverage from the Backstage world into the JavaScript ecosystem. And finally, I'm going to wrap this by giving you the summary of what next to be followed. So, without any further delay, let me jump to the first slide here. So, why Backstage? So, before jumping into Backstage, what is Backstage? It is always good to ask a very basic question, which is why we actually need this. Do we even need something like a Backstage? So, let's start from there. So, in a typical microservice world, Uh, you might have hundred of services all deployed to clouds or on-prem. These services could be owned by different teams. Uh, and here comes the very big and the real challenge, the documentation part. All these services must be having some documentation, and these documentations could be scattered on different platforms. Some of the teams might be using Confluence to store their information. Some of the other teams would be using tech docs to store their information, and uh, other teams might be using GitHub or the service, the source code management tools to store their information about their services. So this is very much like the information everywhere and nowhere. Uh, the second challenge we will see in this kind of system is who owns a particular service. So let's suppose we have an authentication service and some other team wants to use this service. They don't want to reinvent this wheel. They want to use the existing service which is already there in the organization. But to know who made that service, how we can leverage that service, what are the endpoints, what are the pain areas as of now, what are the architectural decisions points have been made while developing that service, how to get all this information, and the big question is who owns that service. This is something which is not very easy in an environment where there are thousands of services running around. The only solution which works for teams in this kind of dilemma is to drop an email to the leadership to get to know who built that, and then finally after some time you will reach to that team who actually owning that service. Even though you reaches to that point, you still be not able to figure out that whether this is a right developer who built that solution, or they don't have sufficient time which you will get out of them. So there are some burning issues which we are seeing in the microservice world, uh, and that is where we see that there is a requirement, there is a possibility of some arrangements which would solve all these problems. Uh, there comes the Backstage. So this is exactly where Backstage comes in. Backstage acts like a single home for all your services. So all your services which are running inside your organization could be housed, could be cataloged inside Backstage. It could be treated as a bookkeeping, software as well. So once a company adopts Backstage, you can see all the services in one catalog, check who owns each service, because when you onboard a service inside a Backstage, you are actually adding a lot of metadata around that service, like who owns it, whether this has been deployed or not, whether uh, the service is having some issues in the production or not. Are there any open PRs to be merged in that service or not? So there are a bunch of metadata you could associate to that particular service when you are going to catalog it. And once you cataloged it, you will get all this information right in a single window. You don't need to open multiple windows to get that information. So for example, if you want to see the logs of that service, the production logs, you don't need to go to the, Grafana or that sort of, dashboard to get that information out. You would have all that information directly available inside a Backstage. Similarly, if you want to know what is the cost of the clusters where you have deployed this application or a service is, you could, you don't need to go to the cube cost or any other platform. You just right away open your Backstage and then see that information straight away. So that is where Backstage is helping team by giving a single source of truth or a single glass of pain uh, in terms of solving the problems which we just discussed in the last slide. So we know there's a problem. We also see that Backstage is helping in terms of providing a single pane of glass to us by solving those problems. So now, is this all about a theory? Am I speaking theory here, or Backstage is being used by many companies around the world? Honestly, when a technology works, adoption speaks for itself. So look at the numbers, the stars on the GitHub repos, the contributors, the folks, the plugin, ecosystem, the marketplace. This is huge. This is tremendous. Uh, People are using it. Companies are using it because they're seeing those problems getting solved through Backstage. You name a company, it will be using Backstage or a similar kind of solution in their backdoor. Uh, for example, Ericsson, HP, Spotify, Twilio. So these are some of the companies which are using Backstage on their day-to-day purposes to overcome those challenges which we just discussed. So now we know two things. There is a real problem in the software world. Uh, Backstage is a proven solution to that problem. But now you might ask, okay, but what does JavaScript have to do with all of this, right? Is this really relevant to us, or I'm just beating the bush here? Or am I just making a fool of you guys? So believe in me, have some patience. I'm definitely going to help you answer all these questions, and you are on a right call. So this is where it gets interesting, right? Backstage in a JavaScript ecosystem. So Backstage solves all the front-end problems, not all, but many front-end problems at a back-end scale. And learning those techniques, good patterns would help you, uh, you know, uh, design your front-end or JavaScript applications which help you at scale. It teaches you things most React applications never exposes you to. So it is Backstage is not just a tool. It almost like a blueprint or a reference architecture for building scalable JavaScript, React, or Node applications. We have been building JavaScript applications for years. We follow certain good practices, and sometimes we don't. And many times, I would say. But Backstage shows you these practices implemented at a massive scale, at a really massive scale. It teaches you things like how to manage configurations. So if you have a configuration which you wanted to load in your JavaScript ecosystem, uh, we tend to write custom code because it's like loading a JSON or XML file. You just make an API call and load that configuration into the front end and then fetch the information which you required and then act accordingly. But then how about a system which validates whether the configuration is being created correctly or not against a particular schema? How about avoiding the leaking secrets to the front end? You have defined some IDs, you have defined some secrets inside your configurations, and you don't want those secrets to be uh, leaked on the front end side. How to design a system where thousands of developers contribute safely? Uh, how to evolve a system in a long term? How to structure the boundaries cleanly, right? Honestly, you rarely get to see system like this unless you are working inside Netflix or a Spotify or Airbnb, Uber, Meta kind of thing. But Backstage gives that level of exposure to you for free in an open source fashion. For any React engineer, this is the closest thing you will find publicly that shows uh, how a large multi-team UI platform actually works. So it's a win-win situation for both, for the platform engineering guy as well, and for the guy who is working in the JavaScript ecosystem and want to learn how the big applications work in a JavaScript ecosystem. Now, let's go deeper into the Backstage architecture, how the Backstage architecture looks from the 3,000 height fit. So you can divide the system in two parts, the front end and the back end part. Front end part basically comprises of your plugins. So every feature inside Backstage could be treated as a standalone plugin. So if you want to have a new feature to be added inside Backstage, what you need to do is you need to add a new plugin inside it. So it's basically a composition of multiple plugins. Whereas on the backend side, it's basically uh, a collection of reusable services which will help you do all those mundane tasks. So you don't need to reinvent those things again and again. Those are made you available through collection of npm packages which you could just import on the backend side, which is written in a node. So you just import those services which will help you in doing the authentication, the notification, the permission, uh, the scheduler part, which is very relevant in the Backstage world. So all these services are clubbed and then provided to you. So we understand now two things. One, Backstage is really massive. It's been adopted by many companies because there's a problem which there are problems which Backstage is solving at a great scale. We looked at the architecture as well. Now let's see that how it is going to benefit us, right? How it is going to help us in terms of learning those uh, good practices or blueprints so that we can adopt in our JavaScript application development as well. So first look at the plugin architecture, which is there inside the Backstage. So most React developers build application for end users, right? It could be like customers, it could be like admins, it could be like guests or employees. But Backstage is different. Here you build, application for other engineers. And when your users are engineers, the expectations go way higher. Uh, you need to have predictable patterns. You need to have a consistent UI, UX. You need to have stable APIs. You need to define your typed contracts. You need to have a defined plugin lifecycle, composability. So this shifts all your thinking from the point that how do I build this feature to how do I enable others to build these features and many more. So this shift from your persona from app builder to the platform builder. And this is exactly what separates senior engineer from architects. So Backstage shows you how really a plugin works. These are the building blocks inside Backstage. The plugins could be a front-end plugin or a back-end plugin, or it could also be a shared plugin which is like going to be reused in other plugin. It will not be having a skin or a UI to be shown. These plugins communicate with each other through network API. So if you have a front-end plugin which is looking for data from the backend side, you could use the network APIs to fetch the data. There is no direct imports that you could made inside your front-end plugin from the backend plugin. There are utilities APIs on the front-end side as well as on the services on the backend side, which will help you, uh, fetching the data without going much into the detail. There are extension points which allow you deep customization. So if you want to customize an existing plugin, you could use extensions to do that stuff. There are modules which defined or which extend features safely. Routing is also one of the features which is provided at the plugin level. So this is a master class in designing for scale, safety and for multiple teams. Now, let's talk about how you could create a plugin inside a Backstage. Uh, so it's basically a full four-step process. Uh, Even though the plugins sound big and complex, they really follow a simple structure. First, you need to declare what part of the Backstage app you want to extend. It could be a front end or it could be a back end. Then you register your component or route. So you define your component, that what this component would be. Then you hook them into the application through API. So you defined the component. Now you need to wire this component, this definition, through the pre-existing APIs into the app. And finally, everything gets composed into the UI. So this is what you would do when you define your plugin inside Backstage. Now, just imagine that the same structure, the same process, the same APIs are available for you in your JavaScript ecosystem. It would be really easy for any team or any developer to come in and create new plugins without impacting any other existing plugin or any other part of the system. So that is the beauty of Backstage. It helps you define the plugin in an isolation manner. You could test your plugin as well. You can deploy your plugin as well independently of other plugins or other application. So that is the beauty. Uh, no hidden magic, no special cases, just a clean, predictable pattern. This is why Backstage scales so well across big organization and everyone follows the same building blocks. Now let me talk about the configuration management, something almost every system struggles with. So Backstage nailed down this problem with a very clean, layered approach. You will get environment variables for overrides, environment specific YAML files for staging, prod, etc. You would get local YAML files for development, and finally a base config for shared settings. So this makes configuration very predictable and easy to manage across environments. No more mixing of secrets, no more random environment files lying everywhere, and no more guessing what config is coming from where. Backstage gives you the structure, and structure is what stops system from collapsing as they grew. So consider a scenario where you have application, a front-end application, let it be written in a React, and you wanted to load some settings from the configuration, and accordingly you wanted to render your screens, or you wanted to use it in many other screens as well. Now, you could define your configuration in a JSON or a YAML file, and then you write a small custom code to load that file and then read that file. But then on top of that, if you want to have a system or a checks and balances around that configuration, that whether this following a particular schema or not, how to validate that uh, configuration against that schema. You need to write a lot of code for that. Not limited to this, but then if you want to uh, have some validation around that, some of the secrets that you have defined inside the configuration is not going should not going to be leaked to the front end. It is only meant for the backend part of it. How you are going to restrict that part. Again, you need to write a lot of code for that. So this is all being done inside Backstage with proven, patterns, good practices. And what we need to do is we just need to borrow some of those NPM packages from the, Backstage world, have it included in your own JavaScript ecosystem, look at some documentation and back on. It's that much easy. So how this is going to work, right? For the configuration management, I'm saying, uh, the benefits you will get from this approach is like type safety, right? You avoid exposing secrets to the front end. You get one single API to read configuration. There would be only one, API through which you would be able to read different configurations. Uh, you avoid all the complex style config access stuff. This is exactly how config should be handled in the large systems, especially when many teams work on the same platform. And again, these are patterns we can reuse in our JavaScript or React application ecosystem. Now come, let's move to the one of the other feature which is very favorite to me as well, which is API boundaries. So Backstage is extremely strict about how the front end and the back end communicates, and this is what keeps the system maintainable. The rules are very simple. The front end talks to back end only by using the HTTP or the REST protocol. No direct imports, no shared secret code. Backend plugins never share databases. Configs are schema driven, and utility app APIs act as a contract. So this means every plugin is isolated, safe, and replaceable. You can remove a plugin, swap it, update it without breaking the entire app. Most React app or Node app don't follow this level of discipline, but Backstage forces you to design like a real platform engineer. This is another reason why studying Backstage teaches you things you don't usually get to learn unless you work in a very large company, right? So if you see this uh, illustration, this is like you have a strong boundary which you cannot cross because there are checks and balances implemented at the very top. If you have a front-end plugin which requires some data, you need to follow certain patterns. You need to use certain extension points by which you can extract the data from the backend. Uh, at a plugin level, if I talk about every plugin that you are going to add as a feature inside your Backstage will have its own DB. If that is not the case, it is going to, I mean, it is up to you, but then it's recommended way of doing so. So that is what makes Backstage in growing uh, uh, in the large numbers or so. Now, I'm just going to wrap this conversation here because if I go much more deeper into this, it is definitely going to consume or take a lot of time of you guys. So you could use this conversation, you could use this talk as a starting point to go more deeper into Backstage. Look around the patterns, around the code, the packages which are there, which are solving all these problems, and then see how you can use those stuffs inside your applications. So I'm just, doing a conclusion of all the stuff that we have discussed so far. Uh, We started with a very real problem like information services, ownership, documentation is spread across everywhere in the organization. Then we saw how Backstage solved this with single unified developer portal, a single pane of glass that organizes the entire engineering ecosystem. But the real key takeaway in this is Backstage is not only a solution for platform teams. It is a reference architecture for us as a JavaScript, React, or a Node engineer. It teaches you, it shows you how to design scalable systems on the front end side, how to define clear boundaries, how to define predictable APIs, modular plugins, strong config management, and platform that hundreds or thousands of developers can safely extend. You don't often get to, study system like this unless you work at Spotify, Netflix. But Backstage gives you that exposure right in the open source fashion for you. So Backstage teaches you how to build not just apps but platforms. And the moment you shift from this feature builder to platform builder, you step into the next level of engineering maturity. Thank you.